Hi, I'm Al Riley, and I'm here today to tell you a little bit why we need the yes vote. You see, let's go on a little bit of history. I'm not Indigenous, but I really believe the voice should be heard. You see, Aboriginal tenure embassy began on the 26th of January 1972, 51 years ago. Michael Anderson, Billy Craigie, Bertie Williams and Tony Curry from Redfern placed a beach umbrella opposite the Parliament House, protesting for Aboriginal rights on Nungawarra country, which is known as Canberra. So that's a little bit of history. Now I'm going to just introduce you to a little bit more knowledge. Got a book here called Fire Country by Victor Stephenson. I'll give you a snapshot of that later. He basically explains how cultural burning practices allow for wildlife to sort of travel around between the burns. They do it in mosaic patterns, which is just like little circles here and there, but leaving pathways for the wildlife to escape the fire and survive it. So in a way, they're sort of really protecting the wildlife when they do burns. Unlike hazard burns, fire reduction burns, where they do a fire front and that fire front just burns right through the bush. It doesn't allow for the wildlife to escape the fire. And unfortunately, some of the wildlife get caught in that hazard reduction and die. That's a shame. I'd just like to introduce another book to you. This one's Sand Talk by Tyson Yunker Porter. Now, Tyson explains what whitefellas do. They take a direction, and when they stuff up, they reflect on what they've done wrong, but then they've got to try and connect with the people they've done wrong by to get their respect. Very little does it happen because you've already upset these people. So let's reverse that situation. Why don't we take the respect of the people of what our directions are going to be? Connect with them and then reflect on what is good for them as well before you take your direction. Now, isn't that a simpler way of doing things rather than doing things and stuffing up and then realise you've done wrong and try and reconnect to the people you've hurt? Why not listen? That's all we've got to do. Listen and understand what is going to be affected by these people, what your direction is going to affect to these people. So I think there's a lot to be learned about Indigenous knowledge, and I think it could be very good to help climate changes, which we are currently going through. They've got the answers. All we need to do is listen to their voice. Today I'm going to be walking on Dharawal and Gendangara country of the Durack Nation. And just to sort of show you what hazard burns are and compare them to a few of the cultural burns that are done properly. Cultural burns, best to see the video 5 on Australian Story, where Victor explains the difference between a hazard reduction burn, which takes 6 months to revegetate, whereas if it's done properly, revegetation starts in 6 days. And we should be really considering this voice and understanding the quality, the good qualities. There wouldn't be so much smoke hazard as we have with hazard burns. even Captain Cook wrote in his diary when he went up the coast of Queensland and mapped the coast. He explains how he sees these plumes of smoke that are happening in the bush areas. And these little plumes of smoke are nowhere near as heavy as these hazard burn smoke that we get. The other thing is too, Indigenous people walk the land looking for indicators when to burn. If you do that, the fire is not severe. Not only do they walk the land, clear the rubbish from the area, which if you do a fire hazard reduction burn, the rubbish gets burnt, causing toxic fumes and smoke. And instead they walk the country, clear that land of the rubbish and make it a far better and more successful burn, and allow the wildlife to escape from their little burns of fire. They leave little pathways to allow this to happen by burning in mosaic patterns, like little circles. Just a little circle here where it burns back on itself. And in between each little circle is these pathways for the wildlife to escape any fire danger. We've got to start thinking about, as Victor says, fire as a friend and not our enemy. Okay, I'm down here on the military area where recent fires, hazard reduction burns have been done. But as you can see, they've been lucky because they've got a few little tracks here and there going through, which has helped wildlife escape. But it's not done in a mosaic pattern, it's just been done by a fire front. And that fire moves through that bush, and all the animals and wildlife that live in there, they get caught up in all of that sort of fire. So really we've got to really think carefully about how we do these fires. Okay, we can see here a bit more burning. What amazes me is, like, my sister suffers from asthma, and because of all the smoke plumes we've suffered the last couple of weeks, she hasn't been able to go to work. Like, seriously, are we really thinking about the health of the people when we do these hazard burns? Okay, here's Lieutenant Cantillo Reserve. The council just recently came down with the fireys and done a cultural burn, ecological burn, sorry. And you can see a lot of the smaller species have all been burnt, you know, the herbaceous plants. And obviously the fire was intense, because you can see up there in the trees how the leaves have all been singed and they're not as green as they should be. So technically they've tried to do the right thing, but they've done it wrong. Again, it was just a straight out burn straight through this bush, and as you can see it was very dense with a lot of melaleucas and things like that, and some of them have even been burnt. Okay, here is something plastic. Now, by burning that, that's causing toxic smoke. Poisons, more poisons to our atmosphere. Wow, this was pretty lucky. Here's a pressure pack can right here. A bit of heat on it, it's amazing it didn't explode. Or maybe it did. Our council told me too that they cleared the bush, as you can see just here and over there. Broken bottle. So did they really clear it out properly before they burnt this? Or did they just burn the rubbish that was in here as well? Unbelievable. So many wildlife, native habitats here, and again, just been burnt. Disregard them. And you can see by the fire the way it's gone up this tree over here. It's gone straight up that tree. And it's burnt out the top leaves of of the canopy trees. Again, more evidence. There, a piece of tin, a couple of tin cans over there. Wasn't really cleared out properly. And then, as I say, these understory plants, like those ones over there, all been burnt. And like, it's these sort of plants that feed our wildlife. Here's some more broken glass, and up over here, bits of tin, bits of corrugated iron lying around the joint. So when people go, once this regrows, which will be about 6 months later, and people go for a walk around here, what's going to happen? They're going to cut their feet on these because they're not going to see what's buried below. Seriously, council, get back and clean up the mess that you've made. You can see the rubbish now. Clean it up. More broken glass here. Like people go for a bushwalk, they won't see this, and they cut their feet just going for a bushwalk. Amazing. Okay, we're on the edge here. So you can see what was destroyed, these herbaceous plants. They're obviously growing right through here, but they're just being burnt out. And like, these herbaceous plants, they're a food source for our native wildlife. And with the intensity of this heat, they probably won't regerminate. Well, that concludes my little trip for the day. I must admit I couldn't get into the Army Reserve because, well, as you know, you're not allowed in there, but I wish I could have got in there and shown you more about the big burns that happened through the Heathcote area there, along Heathcote Road in the military base there, that caused all that dangerous smoke plume that we've been suffering for the past 2 weeks. Interesting though, on the RFS site the other week, I noticed it said active about a hazard reduction at Glenfield along Atlantic Boulevard, Hillsborough Crescent and 3Bs Drive. And I just spoke with some of the locals down there, and they said that it's been prepared. Campbelltown Council's been through there and cleared some fire trails and everything like that, and that they're intending to do a burn in October. Wow. Man, we're going to come up with some very hot spring and summer weather, and I really can't see that happening. And if it does happen, I had a look down there, mate, there's a lot there that's going to catch a light. A lot of weeds overgrown the understory plants that's currently dead. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there, because if you set that on fire in October, mate, I'd hate to think what kind of smoke pollution we're going to get from that, and how much danger it's going to cause the lizards and life and everything down there too. Because we've got to really take, when we burn, we've really got to take that into consideration. And I can't stipulate more. Get a hold of this book by Victor Stephenson, Fire Country. It just gives you, it's a really good read, and it gives you a common sense approach to how fire should be done, how hazard burning should be done. And it's one of the best reads, most simple reads you can ever get. It's written in plain English, very easy to understand, and just makes so much common sense. And again, I'm going to recommend this book by Tyson Yunkin Porter. This book is all about why why the Indigenous people need their language, because you've got to stop and think when European settlers came along and settled down. They didn't understand the Aborigines, and the Aborigines didn't understand them. But they did have this like sign language or signals and things like that. Just and as there's song lines and the way that they used to interpretate things to be able to tell, even though there was more than 250 dialogues here in Australia, but they could still understand one another through like sign language and actions like, you know, kangaroo and things like that. And as I said, Tyson mentions, you know, this is what the yes vote's really about. If we take and start to understand and respect the Indigenous people, once we respect them, we're going to connect with them. And then once we've connected, we can reflect on what they've said before we take a direction. And that is crucial. Well, this is me, Al Riley, signing out, and have a beautiful day. P.S. I hope you understand the real reasons behind the yes vote and not all this misinformation that's going on out there. You know, like that if you don't know, say no. And this they'll take over the politics. We're talking about one voice. You know, these bureaucrats, you know, they just don't understand. One voice, one crucial voice to try and get things right. And if we get it right, maybe we can change climate change and make this a better world. Wouldn't that be beautiful?